All right, here we go with the next installment of the Andy Warhol Diary and the old Razzle Dazzle. This is your pal Mubbo here, bringing this to you for Thursday, December 2nd, 1976. Now, before we get into the old Razzle Dazzle here, we've got a PFA to go over and also some quick housekeeping items to discuss really fast. So here we have the title screen and the PFA. As I do in every video, I'm putting out a plea for assistance to help find the person or persons responsible for the murder of my uncle Charles Pancheri in his home on October 4th, 2011 in Elizabeth, New Jersey on Green Street. Neighbors saw a ladder reaching up to the back window, and my uncle was in his 70s. There's no reason for him to have a ladder reaching up to the window. So they think it was some kind of orchestrated break-in. There was an amount of money stolen from the home. So if you have any tips whatsoever, anything is helpful. It is a cold case right now, but when I spoke to the detective, they assured me that any information that came in that might be helpful, they would consider reopening the case. So I'm asking, please, if you have any information on this, please call the tip line at 908-654-TIPS, 908-654-8477, or you can go to their website. It's an anonymous tip line and website at www.uctip.org. That's www.unioncountytip.org. So anything would be helpful, even if maybe you don't think it's going to make a difference. The smallest tip would make a difference. And I was actually thinking about this the other day, that this happened shortly before the holidays. So one of the things that you might be looking for is, somebody who never really seemed to have any money, but now all of a sudden they have money and they're buying Christmas gifts for people. And they're kind of evasive about where this money came from because you never really seen them go to work or have a steady job. It's those kind of really small things that could just make all the difference. So please, if you have any information, please come forward, call the tip line, go to the website. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. The next quick thing we have here is a couple of housekeeping items. Now you'll notice at the bottom right here, there's a website for an archive.org. This is actually the digital copy of the Andy Warhol Diaries in its entirety. You would go to the website and then you scroll down a little bit until you see a menu item that says full text. And you click on that and it will bring you the full text of the Andy Warhol Diary. If you don't have a hard copy and you want to read along, if you want to read the diary entry before you watch the video or after. However, I will not be posting anything from that site onto my presentation here, just because I want to avoid a copyright strike. So you can read it on your own. And I will be putting this in every single video going forward, just so if you want to read it as we're going along. The next housekeeping item is, as this is a diary, things tend to build on one another. And we're going to be talking a lot about people and places that we already mentioned in previous videos. So I will not be going back over those people and places. I'll just be mentioning them and saying, for instance, Andy's assistant, Fred Hughes, went to this party. And if you remember, we talked about Fred Hughes in a prior video. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reintroducing people over and over again, because number one, it gets kind of boring. And number two, we're never going to get through this if I keep reintroducing people over and over again. And I'm going to probably make these two announcements at the start of every video. The best thing that you can do really is to go back to the beginning and just start at video 1, which is the video, I think it's called Who Would Shoot Andy Warhol? That's the first video in the playlist. So just start there and just keep going. And as we go along, you'll know who these people are. So the first entry of this diary, this is a 4-paragraph diary entry, but oh, what a 4 paragraphs it is. I thought it was going to be a nice short, couple of slides or two or maybe five, but this thing got very it got very involved because there are so many things going on. So let's start the diary with a comment that his movie Bad is being screened in California this week. He's trying to get a distributor for it. Now, Bad was the last film produced by Andy before his death in 1987. It was directed by Andy's then partner, Jed Johnson, who he mentions in different videos, and written in part by Pat Hackett, who was the redactress on the diary, which we also have a separate video discussing her a little bit. This film earned Susan Tyrell, who's right here, a Saturn Award, which is this fancy schmancy looking thing here, for Best Supporting Actress. The Saturn Awards are presented by the Academy of Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror Films. The Academy is a nonprofit organization with membership that's open to the public. And you can see right here, for $40, you can get the cheap membership. You're a level A, and you can go all the way up to $500, and that will get you to, it will give you a ticket to, it will give you an invite to the Saturn Awards. Now, Connecticut and was a poor student. She became involved in theatrical production of I'm Out for Ginger in New York City in 1963, and then she moved on to Broadway productions in the mid-1960s. She then made her jump into films, and I know her only as portraying Midge in Big Top Huey, which I hate to say this, but that film was awful. I never even made it the whole way through to see what happens. I couldn't watch it. Tyrell, that's Susan Tyrell, became involved with Candy Darling, who was one of Andy's superstars, who is right here, the beautiful Candy Darling, who was made famous in the Take a Walk on the Wild Side song by Lou Reed. And she also had a 2-year relationship with Herve Villechaize, who's right here, who played Tattoo on Fantasy Island, and they lived together in Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles. And by the way, when Herve was seen in public, he hated if you brought up Fantasy Island. He hated that role. But it was such a good show, right? Tyrell suffered from a condition called essential thrombocytosis, which is a disease of the blood and is a rare chronic blood cancer. Most people with this cancer have no symptoms at the time of diagnosis. It is only picked up on blood tests that show an elevated platelet level. Some later symptoms, which is diverticulitis, I believe, blood clots, fatigue, headache, dizziness, and fainting, numbness in the extremities, and a large spleen and blood cell count abnormalities. In early 2000, Johnny Depp hosted a benefit at the now infamous Viper Room to help Susan with her medical costs. Now, if you remember the Viper Room, that's where River Phoenix famously overdosed from drugs, and then Johnny Depp and everyone else started to slowly distance themselves from this club and anything to do with the Viper Room. The original Viper Room is due to be demolished in 2026 to make room for a replacement club and a mixed-use building with retail shops and a hotel. Upon Susan's death in 2012, she wrote in her journal, "I demand my death be joyful, and I never return again." Meanwhile, back at the diary, Andy mentions that Sue Mengers, damn that G, is it GIFs or GIFs? I don't know. Susan Mengers is helping with the distribution for Bad, as none of the distributors want to put up advance money. Sue Mengers, or Susie as she was called, was a talent agent for many filmmakers and actors in the new Hollywood era, which was from the 1960s. She is famously known for telling Barbra Streisand, "Don't worry, honey, stars aren't being murdered, only feature players," in response to Streisand's shock regarding the Tate LaBianca murders by the Manson clan. She was also known to be a big fan of the old Mary Jane and always seemed to be imbibing. And you can see down here in this little Wikipedia snip that I took, even after retirement, Sue kept her contracts in Hollywood close by to her by hosting small, intimate gatherings. And some of the people are listed right here, a who's who, all these A-listers. Mengers died after a series of small strokes and a lifetime of illness. She had some close friends with her at her death, including actress Ally MacGraw and a person named Boaty Boatwright. And with a name like that, I have to know who this is. Boaty Boatwright is actually talent spotter and casting agent Alice Lee Boatwright. And there she is with the salad dressing king himself, a.k.a. Mr. Let's Give It All Away, zoom in Paul Newman. Boaty would go on to cast films such as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the one with Gene Wilder, and Fiddler on the Roof. Meanwhile, back at the diary, Andy sent Ronnie Cutrone to buy brooms. He spent $20 on brooms. Andy dropped off beer heiress and fun party girl Catherine Guinness, who we talked about in a previous video, from the Guinness beer family fortune. And they went home to change. He then went back to pick up Catherine, and they went to 18th West 38th Street, which is this right here, to a new club that opened. It's now a Korean barbecue restaurant. And if you're looking for something to do, you can pop into the Westbury right here. They're open till 4 a.m. Andy was invited to this club by Helen Bransford, who's this person right here, and this person right here, who was a Nashville-born jewelry designer. She is well known for writing a book about her plastic surgeries called Welcome to Your Facelift by Jimmy Buffett about her pet pig, Forky, who would have been loved by the Korean barbecue place. Andy remarks that this club is trying to be a new Reno Sweeney, which was a gay cabaret club located on 13th Street and 7th Avenue. The name of the club was actually Reno Sweeney, but commonly misidentified as Reno Sweeney's. And you can see right here, the founder of Reno Sweeney did not like that it was always being misidentified. The building is currently under construction as of September 2024 and is now home to a restaurant called Alice. So this is it right here, this thing right here, this thing that says Alice. That's where Reno Sweeney used to be. And it's home to a restaurant called Alice, a seafood and lobster bar. And if you go into this website right here, Alice, New York, the loading screen is a bunch of shrimps or crawfish or something. They're all going around in a circle. I appreciate that. I appreciate those little things. But you can see the some of the offerings they have here. They also have a store, if you go to this website, where you can get pastas and olive oil and sauces and cheeses and things like that. Me personally, if you want a fun fact, I find seafood disgusting. I will not touch it. The only thing I will eat is fish and chips, and that's it. And it has to have a lot of tartar sauce on it so that I can't taste the fish. On this particular night at Reno Sweeney, Tim Hardin was performing at Reno's. Tim was an American folk and blues singer. So here you can see that some of his songs, right here is his top 10 songs. He also made famous that song, If I Was a Carpenter, which was covered by many, many people. So that's Tim Hardin, if you need to know. Andy noted that, okay, so now we're back at the club. Andy noted that Helen Bransford goes around with John Radziwill. John later married Jackie O's sister, Lee. And Fred thinks Helen is great and everybody should be nice to her. So we're still talking about, we're talking about Helen Bransford right here. Helen Bransford is now, at the time, going around with John Radziwill. John Radziwill then goes around with Lee, who was Jackie O's sister, and ended up marrying her, which is how we get Lee Radziwill. And let me just get back to where we were. At this new club, Maxime de la Falaise was there with her new maybe boyfriend, Craig Brown. Andy said that he worked with Craig on the Rolling Stones album cover. Maxime was an English-Irish 1950s model, and she made her way into underground movie acting during the 1960s. During World War II, she worked as a minor codebreaker at Bletchley Park before she was let go after developing kleptomania after being caught stealing repeatedly. Maxime's parents refused to take her back in due to being discharged. She was discharged for disorderly conduct. She was sent into exile to the USA, where she settled in New York City. Her daughter Lulu became a model for YSL, and Maxime sometimes modeled for that house as well. So you can see Lulu is right here, and this is Maxime up here. And this is Bletchley Park. What a nice house, huh? Maxime's maybe boyfriend, Craig Braun, is an American actor and former graphic designer who became famous for his album covers, including working with Andy on the Stones' Sticky Fingers album cover. It had a real working zipper that could be unzipped to reveal underwear-type fabric. And from what I was reading, the fabric on the inside had like a warning label that nothing on the album could be copied and resold. And it was just one of those anti-piracy messages inside of the zipper on the underwear, printed on the underwear. However, this was proven to be expensive to make, and the zipper was damaging the vinyl record. Later versions only had a picture of the jeans, no zipper. The general consensus is that Jed Johnson was the person in the picture, which was Andy's then partner. However, Andy took several photos of the men, including makeup artist Corey Tippin, who is right here, and Joe Dellasandro, Little Joe, never once gave it away. It was thought that Andy wasn't even sure whose picture he chose. He just picked the best one of the bunch with no regard as to who it actually was. This jeans cover was censored in Spain and replaced with a can of fingers, which I think is even worse. What would you rather look at, this or this? This is disgusting. I don't want to look at that. Barbara Allen was also at the club, and we talked about Barbara Allen before. She was a socialite and a journalist working at Andy's Interview magazine. Barbara was going to be moving into Fred Hughes' house on 89th and Lexington for a while because she rented her apartment on East 63rd. So here's Fred's house. So this is where Barbara was going to be moving, and it could be yours for only $7 million. So she's renting out her apartment on East 63rd, was also known as the Halston House, to Catherine Guinness. Catherine Guinness let Barbara stay in the house while she was waiting for Fred's house to get together and, Fred to completely move out. But the two of them together in one apartment was too much. So they both wanted their space. And this is the townhouse that Barbara lived in. She was moving out to move into Fred's, and then Catherine Guinness was moving into here. And you could see they sold for $18 million, and that was actually a lowered price. I think it was originally on the market for $40, and it got no buyers, so they dropped it to $18 million. And this is some pictures of the inside, and here's the layout, a nice little map here. And it's actually a 4 stories. So like the garage is on the bottom and then 2 stories and then like a roof. Andy then went home and watched the news, which he states was all about Gary Gilmore. And the news keeps showing him saying that he wants to die. Now, we talked about Gary in another video, and so I'm not going to go into it very much. Gary killed a couple of people, and the thing that he was most well known for is inspiring Nike to take his original phrase of "let's do it," and Nike turned it into their slogan of "just do it." So that's it for the diary entry for today. We just have a couple of small things for this day in history. On this day in history, communist revolutionary Fidel Castro becomes president of Cuba. And in other news, the biological half-brother of incumbent President Gerald Ford was killed near Lebanon, Tennessee, due to driving the wrong way on Interstate Highway 40, and he was involved in a head-on crash with a truck. And that's the only two really interesting things that happened on this day back in 1976. I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. MUBBO.